Howdy, y'all, and welcome to a very special episode of Rolling Dice and Taking Names. In this episode, the guys will only talk about games. We'll hear about the guys' trip to Dice Diversions and reviews for Plum Island Horror, Apiary, Unmatched Sun's Origin, Forest Shuffle, Pyramidice, and Lunar.
Hello and welcome to Rolling Dice and Taking Names. This is episode 313, Titanium. My name's Marty.
I'm Tony.
We're really going to try to keep this intro short into one specific topic because we got a lot of games to cover. As we were recently at Dice Diversions, got to play a lot of games. We want to share that with you. But before we get into that, Tony, I got a little bit of an administrative announcement to make here.
I see that.
All right, so here's the thing. Google Podcast is shutting down, and we do have some subscribers and listeners listening on Google Podcast. So they're shutting down and wanting everybody to transfer over to YouTube. So what I've done is I've got our YouTube channel, Roll Dice Take Names, set up with a podcast feed now, so that if you listen to podcast or audio on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, there is now a podcast section where as soon as an episode is dropped, it will automatically go there. Now, in the past, I've taken and uploaded the audio along with a thumbnail of that episode and everything, and I still may do that, but I have to do that manually. This will be automatic, and I did check. All the show notes work in the description. All the links are there. The only thing it may do is truncate our title because, Tony, we tend to have really long titles as we try to cram as many games in the title as we can.
Well, that's so that people can find it on the search. Now, I have no clue how search algorithms work. I can shorten that bad boy up just to like maybe a hot game or two.
It truncates it to 100 characters, which is fine. Unfortunately, it doesn't grab the show thumbnail. So it's just our generic logo that's going to show up. So if you want to see the nice fancy graphics work that Tony puts together, you can still find that on our website. I don't think that shows up on any podcast player, though.
Then why do I do it?
Because I need to figure out how to do that. Maybe there's a way where I can grab the episode image, but the image would have to be a square. Hey, some homework to work on in 2024. Is there a possible way to where our thumbnail is square, embed that into the feed, and then YouTube and all these other places automatically grab that so you can see like the boxes of games we're going to be covering and stuff.
Okay. Well, just tell me the size and I'll cut it down. I mean,
that means you got to work in with a little bit of less space in order to get everything. We'll see how that works. But anyway, I just want to announce that up front. So if you are using Google Podcast, switch over, and we are now available on YouTube, Spotify, etc. And for all this hard work, don't forget you can go and support us over at buymeamoonpie.com or buymeacoffee.com/RDTN.
all right, let's make this happen. You took me somewhere. You made me go to Atlanta to go to Dice Diversions. Now, this is a new board game con that is going on down in Atlanta, hosted by these incredible gentlemen, Patrick and Shannon, who also do Southern Fried Gaming Expo, which is a fabulous video game show. Just place to go and play some pinball, some regular video games, get in tournaments. But they said, this board game thing seems to be taking off. So they started their own little convention, and they said, Marty, Tony, why don't you drive 4 hours south, come see us, and see what you think. And I'll just spoil it for you right now. Loved it.
Yes, we've been big fans of Southern Fried Gaming Expo. Tony says it's fabulous, but he wouldn't know because he never goes. But at this show, they also have a large tabletop contingency there. There's a lot of tabletop events going on at this event, which what makes it so good is video games, tabletop. So we got involved with Southern Fried because they had listened to our show for years and asked us if we want to come down and kind of help start spurning the growth of tabletop. And they've had such success there, they said, all right, let's just spin off a own separate tabletop-only convention about 6 months out from Southern Fried. And Tony, I will say it looked like it was a huge success.
Oh, yeah.
It was in a Hilton hotel, very nice facilities and everything. Well, we'll talk about that in a second. The facilities were nice. It was nice rooms. It was a nice restaurant. All the rooms were configured nicely. We'll talk about the temperatures of the room later, but we'll get there. But I will say they were expecting hopefully around 350 to show up. They said, hey, it'd be great if we got 450. That would be amazing. They ended up having over 550 people show up to this event. And they've already said they've outgrown the space and will be looking for a new hotel next year.
Well, first, for me, the hospitality. They had negotiated with the hotel a coupon to where you could get breakfast at a cheaper rate. Okay, that's a bonus right there. So that's a nice little thing. That's one of those small things that mean a lot.
Yeah. So when you got there, when you went to the registration table, they offered you to buy breakfast tickets, and you went to the breakfast area. I think it saved us $7 or $8 per person. I mean, it was a decent amount. Tickets were like $15, or I can't remember the exact price of the tickets, $12 to $15. But anyway, you got a full breakfast. Fantastic. I've not seen anybody else do that. So that was a really good deal. But the big winner, as far as hospitality when it comes to food, happened on Saturday afternoon.
I was outside. I had to run to the restroom. And when I come back, there's a table with free cookies and free milk. Milk and cookies.
Cookies.
So
amazing.
I mean, I know. And I'm just like, oh, what is this? I mean, this obviously is for another event that's going on in the hotel. I've never known a con, back in this con, to provide free cookies and with, something to drink. No, just picking their Mega Moose Con. And there was a sign that said, this is for Dice and Diversion. And I'm just like, oh, wow, this is good. So not being greedy, I got you a cookie, got me a cookie, got some milk. Oh, man, it was so good.
That just kind of made my day. We're sitting there playing a game, and all of a sudden I'm sitting there chugging on a little plastic container of chocolate milk and eating a cookie. It was just nice.
Those were the nice things. These were the things that they did to help enhance the experience for the game players there at the hotel. There was a vendor hall, very small vendor hall, but I'm fine with that. And they had some eclectic ones because you got to get you some wax for
some candles. Yes. Yeah. Some melts. And I will mention there's also Saturday afternoon, because so many people end up showing up to the event. They were scrambling like crazy to try to get extra tables set up, and they did. They put tables into the hallway outside the main gaming room. They got some conference rooms that the hotel provided. They set them up in there. So they ended up opening all this extra space for open gaming. And because it was kind of pretty packed in there Saturday afternoon, and they did the best job that they could. And I knew it was going to run very smoothly because those guys run an amazing event with Southern Fried. And so I knew it was going to go off what looked like to us without a hitch. As attendees, it looks like everything came off without a hitch.
Yes. They had, and a lot of cons do this. They call it their Eat, Play, Win, where you can participate, you get a dinner, and then you'll play a game. And usually it's the winners at the table will get that game, or maybe there'll be a raffle during that event. They did that, and Marty and I got to participate in 2 of those. We were part of helping run the game, and that was my first time Ready, Set, Bet. And the other one was a trivia game called HexaQuest. And, they had some barbecue chicken, barbecue pork, barbecue chicken, and they had some pretzels, and probably one of the best treats ever, and I didn't know this, Cracker Jacks. They had Cracker Jack bags. When did Cracker Jacks get away from a box?
Oh, a long time ago, but they still have little prizes in there.
No, they don't. Those are not prizes.
Okay, most of them were just stickers.
Yeah. Stickers that lead to maybe a free game online or something like that. I'm like, I remember the day when you would actually fight for the prize inside. You'd open a bunch of them because there was this one that everybody wanted. It was kind of like it wasn't like a fiddle thing that people spin in their finger. It was a little top that you could sit there and blow, and as kids we would blow it and it would spin around. And
I forgot about that.
They were amazing little prizes. Now they're just stickers. Oh man, that was but the popcorn.
Maybe I'm remembering this wrong, but did they have like one that was almost like a little pinball thing with a little ball that you flip? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you do. I mean, they were useless. They were crappy, but they were fun. And then you lost them, and it was okay. Go get you another box of Cracker Jacks. So those 2 events were very enjoyable. Lot to eat there. I mean, people didn't starve during those, so that was awesome. And they were relatively inexpensive as well.
Yes, they were. And what was nice was the hotel was also beside a bunch of restaurants. You and I walked to a place, got a burger one night, didn't have to drive or anything. So it's a fantastic location. But
it's a fantastic location that's not going to be there next year.
that's right. Who knows what it will be? I will say the only comment that we had about, as far as like a negative, had nothing to do with the people that ran Dice and Diversions. I don't know what was going on in the hotel. I don't know if their heat was broken or what. But let me tell you what, there were some areas of the game room that was flipping cold.
Oh my goodness. Put on your jackets, your long johns. Now, January in Atlanta, I know people up north are saying, what are you talking about? Cold. All right. So if it breaks 32 degrees going south on that, that's cold because we're just not built for this. We've talked about this on this show. There was a draft, and a huge draft. These big conference rooms, they do not have the ability to, heat it up. And I don't know what the hotel was thinking. Shoot, even the people at the front desk were wearing parkas and mittens because it was so cold in the hotel. Now the room was fine until one morning. Marty's probably thinking, why is he taking so long on a shower? It took 20 minutes to finally get some hot water. I'm like, oh, this is going to suck if we don't have hot water.
That has zilch to do with the fine folks running Dice and Diversions. That was just some funny. And it was funny. I went and talked to some of the people running. It's like, it's really cold. And I was like, yes, we've heard from a lot of people. It's really cold. There was one corner and they were saying, well, where exactly is it cold? And we both pointed to one corner where we were sitting and everybody's back there with parkas and caps on and everything trying to get warm. No fault of the people running the show. It was just funny. It was just kind of humorous that we were making fun of the entire weekend. But once again, guys, fantastic job with Dice and Diversions. I did ask, man, I said, I hate that it's so close to Tantrum Con, which you and I are getting ready to go to, which you hear about in the next episode. But they said Tantrum House actually wanted to have theirs in February and March. So they're hoping in 2025 that maybe Tantrum Con will move theirs a little bit later. They'll keep theirs in January. So hopefully people won't have to choose between the two and go to both, because I really want to go back again. Again, fantastic run event. You had, like I said, the Learn to Plays, a lot of events that you could create on the Tabletop Events website and everything like that. So fantastic job, and I can't wait to see them again this summer at Southern Fried. Tony and I have been talking about our excitement for the new Star Wars Unlimited game.
Bring it, baby. Let's go. I'm ready to blow me up some Death Star. Let's go. Oh, you coming? I'm going to blow up a planet, baby. Let's go.
As of right now, pre-orders are now available on Miniature Market for both starter boxes, which you'll definitely want to get. Just as a 2-deck box for being able to learn and play the game. Plus, there's unique cards that won't be in the booster box. And the booster boxes are there now. I don't know if this is going to be one of those like a Lorcana sort of thing where they sell out quick, but they are available right now at Miniature Market. And the reason I'm saying that because I happen to see they have a big sale today, up to 60% off select TCGs and accessories. So here's the thing. If you play card games, you need sleeves, you need deck holders. We love the Gamegenic products that they've been coming out with, the deck holders and the sorters and everything like that. So when I see these things, it's like 60% off. I feel like, oh man, do I need some new sleeves for any of my games? And I go out and pick them up real quick. But the thing is, I'll miss that if not, I'm not on the mailing list for Miniature Market. That's how I find out about these things. I get on the mailing list for Miniature Market, get these daily deals. It's like, hey, by the way, we got this big sale going on these accessories. You might want to check it out. And then I go over there and check it out and end up throwing stuff on my cart and end up getting this stuff. But I also get it at a pretty decent deal, and I always get free shipping over $100, or I get just fixed shipping at $6.99, which I think is a really good deal, especially if some of these games weigh so heavy, but you don't get over that $100 mark. So again, make sure to check out the daily deals over Miniature Market. Go there every day, sign up for the newsletter, and please click on our affiliate link, which you can find on our website, rolldicetakenames.com.
5-minute initiative begins in 3, 2, 1.
I love any Euro game that has a little bit of dice mechanic in it. So when Ares Games released Pyramidice, I was very excited to try this out. And this is designed by Luigi Farini. Now, Tony, you got this game out, you were setting it up, and we were kind of going through the rules, and it took you a while to get through the rules. But once you did, and we kind of understood what the goal of the game was and how everything worked, I must say that I really enjoyed my play of this game of cleverly using dice in order to build a pyramid and had a little bit of engine building with it. And when you combine those two things together, it was a surprise for me.
Yeah, and there wasn't this constant collection of workers and resources to manage. I mean, you only had 8 slots for either workers, cats, or stone dice. That's all you had, and you had to manage that. You had 2 actions. You could rest, which allows you to go get more resources, more workers. Workers, cats, let you manipulate dice, something we always check for in any type of dice game. How can I manipulate the dice so if what's rolled isn't what we want, how can I move it up or down? And then, of course, we're sitting there like, okay, rest. You'll be able to get those resources. And then you'll be able to, if you have a god, you can use that god to be able to, adjust your rest action. And then there's the work action, which is the other one, which is the meat of the game, where you will go out and you will collect dice that will allow you to either help build the pyramid, pay homage to another god, get some fame points. I mean, those are some of the key actions you're taking here, because overall it is a race to either complete the pyramid, and whoever did the best there gets the most points, you're going to win. Or if you go through and see all the gods in the god deck, that'll end the game for you. You sum all that up at the end, whoever has the most points is the winner.
And like you said, the meat of the game is the work, because however many worker tokens you have on your board is how many dice you're going to be able to take from the quarry to roll and start using. Certain gods' cost are certain combinations of die, like 2, 3, 4, etc., like that. So maybe use the cats to manipulate those to get them what you want. There's gold die, and then there's the white die. The stone die are the ones that actually build the pyramid. When you go to put those out, 1 and 2 cost no workers, but the 5 and 6 cost 2 workers, but you get points based on the pips that are showing when you put those out into the pyramid. The higher levels of the pyramid, there's only 3 levels. The higher you go, the more workers you have to use to build on higher levels. You also get a secret objective at the beginning of the game, which may say, hey, at the end of the game, if you have for every 2 4s that are together, you get bonus points. So then at that point, that's what mine was. I'm trying to make sure I get white 4s out onto the pyramid so I can use it to generate bonus points at the end. But then the engine building part, Tony, is what I really got into, because I could combine these different gods, and during the work phase, I could start using these gods to manipulate, to go, oh, I can turn in this to give me an extra worker, turn in 2 workers to give me these points, turn in 1 and 1 of these to give me 7 points. I almost ignored the pyramid and was generating a lot of my points just from the engine building mechanic I had with my gods.
And then as we were only doing this as a 2-player, I easily recognized that. And I'm like, okay, fine. I'm going to try to race up the pyramid so that you can't keep doing that over and over and over. But I was, kind of stymied because there weren't any white dice in the quarry. So I would always have to go take a rest action to get a white dice back into the quarry. So I needed an engine that would allow me to quickly get a white dice from the supply and get it into the quarry. But then you had a special ability that freaking said, if I spend a white dice and these 2 things, then I'm going to get buku points. I was like, oh man. However, I was a little discouraged, but we came together at the end really close because of just, I don't know if it was the balance. It was just how it resolved at the end. We were like, man, this is pretty darn tight.
Yeah, so I was way ahead, and then Tony, because of his in-game scoring and him working on the pyramid, was getting a lot of points. Well, one of your gods were add bonus points whenever you added to the pyramid. But both of us eventually had spent workers, cats or whatever, that we had to take that rest action to go back and re-get my supplies. Because remember, you can only take number of dice equal to the number of workers that you have. But if you're spending those workers to activate abilities or building the pyramid, you eventually have to take that rest. And that was a lot of tension to me, because it's like, oh crap, I don't want to rest because Tony's going to jump ahead real quick, but I've got to get more resources. Fine, I'll rest this turn. And hopefully he would rest soon. Someone's like a pit stop. I need Tony to take a pit stop so I can gain here.
That's right. And there's the timer of at the end of a rest period, one of the gods gets discarded, and then they shuffle down. So you've got this round action thing going on that you're like, okay, I can quickly, if I take some rest actions, then I can move off 3 gods. You don't want to waste turns, but there is a in-game function going on there.
And one last thing too is I also appreciate you just couldn't run up with a ton of gods, because at the end of your turn, you had to have one resource per god. So if you're spending a ton of resources and all of a sudden I got 3 on my board, but I got 4 gods, I have to discard a god. So you had to manage that too.
Yeah.
I will say, big surprise for me of the most recent games we played. I really, really liked it. It plays 1 to 4 players, 30 to 60 minutes, which is pretty much spot on. But with the dice manipulation and engine building, I really, really enjoyed this game.
So hopefully after, when this came out, Envoy Heralds were doing demos at your local game stores. I hope you were able to go out and get to play this and see for yourself. Once again, thanks to Envoy for sending this over to us. We really do appreciate it. It was a hit over at Rolling Dice and Taking Names. That's Pyramidice from Aries Games.
5-minute initiative is complete.
Plum Island is a sprawling isle off the South Carolina coast and features the vibrant seaside town of Greenport, the heart of the isle's daily hustle and bustle of commerce and tourism. But the predominant employer and revenue generator is housed in a huge complex of nondescript buildings located on the north end of the island, the mega corporation known as the Plum Island Research Laboratory. Its enormous facilities are responsible for the employment of thousands of workers and scientists as they conduct government-sponsored biological research and experimentation. All was well till October 24th when a hurricane hit the East Coast, damaging the island and knocking out its main power supply. With no power, the safety systems for the lab's super secret and highly experimental cylinders containing the most hazardous biological agents suddenly ruptured. The entire facility was inundated with a horrific lethal mixture of chemicals resulting in the deaths and disfigurement of hundreds of personnel who were taking shelter from the storm. But the true horror is yet to come, as these deaths were only temporary. The poor souls who succumbed to the toxins were somehow revived by this strange mixture of chemicals, returning to life as monstrous altered mutations. With these horrors roaming the island, different groups began to work together in order not only fight off the horrors, but to evacuate what souls they could back to the mainland. And you listeners can play as one of these factions in this cooperative game from GMT Games called The Plum Island Horror from designer Herman Lutman.
Whose bright idea was it to put a biological lab on an island in a hurricane-ridden area? The EPA is not doing their job.
So you're saying EPA should have not allowed the building permits of this facility to be placed out there on the island?
Yeah, I think there's some shenanigans going on around these. I think they were reporting that they were doing chlorine or something because, we already had a tennis court because we had the athletic group on the island that was happening. But then we got some military people on the island going around doing stuff. We've got the neighborhood watch doing stuff. And these are all types of factions that you can play during your adventures on Plum Island. Hey, you may be on vacation, but suddenly you're battling horrors. My heavens, what a predicament you're in. Which leads me to, in this game, we talk about the rules and all, and this is a GMT game, so expect a rule book, a fairly good sized rule book.
Actually, 2 rule books. There's a
rules.
rules reference and a regular rules book.
But they soften the blow because the rule book looks like a comic book.
They did soften the blow. However, I was very used to the GMT style of games. So when I was reading the book for this game, the Plum Island Horror, I was kind of thrown back because I'm used to numbered sections and everything like that. Very discreet. Go to section 3.2.4.7 if you want to learn this rule. And that's not in this. And that kind of threw me for a loop because a lot of times when we were learning the game, I would try to look in the index and said, well, that's on page 27. Well, there's a lot of text on page 27. I really like those numbered sections.
Yeah, and it's easy to reference back and see what's going on. Now, I will say, I mentioned the factions. So with the factions, the players that you're playing in these factions are independent and powers are independent from the other factions, but they synergize inside their faction. That was something that I enjoyed in this game, Marty. I liked how when I was the military, it was their job to kind of call the horrors that are coming down the board. These factions, because we talk about that instead of an individual one, like you would think in Pandemic, where you have an individual capability, each faction has at least 5 individuals that have individual powers that all work well with the other ones. That amazed me when we were playing this game. I like how that happened.
Which adds a lot of replayability because each time you could play a different faction. Like I said, each character has their own ability. And there's also something called a compound. So you actually have 6 things that you're controlling over the course of the game. And by the way, if you happen to lose all those characters, if they're killed, that's another way to actually trigger the end of the game. So you got to keep them healthy. Now, one thing I like about this is the actual flow of the game. This is played over the course of 3 days, with each day broken up into 3 sections: morning, afternoon, and night. And I really like how each of these rounds happen, because we're going to put all of our faction tokens into a bag, along with some of the game tokens called fate tokens and
the event token, which is the nasty one.
Yes, the impending doom token is what they call it.
They call wait a minute, hold on. They call it the impending doom. And
they do call it the impending doom token. Yeah.
Okay, well that's fair. I'll give it that because it was it was pretty doomful.
So what you're going to do, you're going to draw a token and you're going to resolve that token. Now, how the game plays against you is almost like a tower defense. At the very beginning of the game, you've got these stacks of horrors. Horrors are basically just square tokens that are sitting at the top of 6 lanes. And when it's time for a fate token to be drawn, you have a fate deck. You're going to flip it over. The top of the card tells you, hey, you're going to spawn some additional horrors into one of these lanes. Then the next part of the fate card tells you which lanes activate, and they simply move. The larger the stack of horrors, the slower they move, and obviously the smaller, the quicker they move. And if they run across a civilian, that immediately takes them off the board. If it runs across one of the faction members, a fight ensues. So these horrors are spawning and constantly moving down the board that we have to deal with throughout the entire game.
Also from this beautiful bag are the faction tokens, right? That you've got to pull out, and then it becomes that faction's turn. Now, this was something that when we first started playing that we had to wrap our little heads around is you pull your token on the morning of the first day and you get 1 action. Now, this is just 1 action for 1 person in your faction. As the threat grows, more people know about it, so you get to take more actions.
The highest was 3.
Was 3. Wow. And we still were able to win. That's tough.
Now, even though you can only have a certain number of factions depending on the period of the day, what I did like was there was this crisis adrenaline phase right at the beginning of the turn where you could move all of your faction standees. Now, these are standees. They're not miniatures. But you could just take a move action with each one of those. Then after that, take an action, full action with one of those. So I do appreciate the fact that even though you can't do something with everybody, you can at least move them and possibly get them into position for a future turn.
So think of it as standard fare with this game. There's move, there's combat, there's exploration.
There's no exploration.
I'm sorry, it's not exploration, as my voice in my ear just tells me. It is where you go out and you try to gather supplies. What was that called?
That was actually a certain location that had certain icons. Yeah. Where you could do a search.
No, okay. Explore, search. Okay, you got me there. You got me. I'm exploring the land. I'm scavenging the land. Okay, I'm searching the land. You're right. You're absolutely right.
Well, it's because it's a search deck. You draw a card. You get to possibly get some supplies, which is very important in getting those supplies. One of the important things, Tony, is crowd control. So as you move around this board, and it's a grid of different areas on the map, you can actually direct people to get off the island. You got a megaphone out there going, excuse me, everybody listen to me. Please move this way. There's nothing to see here. Keep on going. And you're trying to shepherd these tokens basically down to evacuation areas on the board to where if they get to an evacuation area that has a boat or a helicopter and maybe one of the mainland bridges, you can take an evacuate action in order to actually move them off the board. As they move off the board, they generate points for you, and your goal is to try to generate 26 evacuation points by moving these tokens off the board. So that's what we're trying to do this entire game while maintaining and trying to keep the threat level down from these horrors.
After you've done your action, this was another interesting aspect of this game for me, was in clockwise order, someone else can take a basic action.
Follow-up action.
Yeah, follow-up action. They can go out there, and they can take that action. They can move, they can do combat, whatever, but they're tempting fate because they, at the end of this, after they do the action, they have to flip over a fate card. And if that fate card has these dreaded words, it's not impending doom, it's draw an event card. Okay, they even broke their own words there, but that's all right. Then you have to do an event card, and that ends all other follow-up actions. So everybody playing can do a follow-up action as long as no event is drawn. That helps with the game as far as the reduction in actions that people can take. So that was interesting.
But I also like the tension that adds, because we're like, man, if we could just possibly take one extra action, then we might set us up for the turn. Now, there are a certain number of cards we checked in the Fate deck that says play an event card. I think it was like 10 out of 36. So we were doing some card counting, Tony, and we would go, oh man, there's probably only like a 25% chance that you're going to draw one of those cards. So I do like that part of it, of a push your luck sort of deal based on what you've seen so far in the play of the game. We're pulling tokens. We're taking actions. We got the Fate tokens coming out. The other one, the Impending Doom token, is basically, hey, you have to draw an event card and you have to play it. And it's always really bad things. Nothing ever good happens when the event card is pulled.
Some additional big bad boss might show up. I did like on the event cards that you weren't overwhelmed with those. So I never, even though the event cards were very bad, I didn't feel like this ended the game when we were playing, where there was no coming back. Another thing that I enjoyed was if a character on your faction dies, it's not like they're gone for good unless you roll crappy, because they have a bravery icon. So you can they resurrect and they don't come back as a zombie. They come back. They've got a last shot at surviving and healing up. There's healing. Of course, you can heal. And if you're in a hospital, you can heal, or some people have the ability to heal others or heal themselves. So all that's going on too. So you're managing all this with limited actions while horrors are descending on you and trying to kill the inhabitants of the island.
And I will say combat in this is very straightforward. Let's say you fight a stack of horrors. Depending on the size of the stack and the terrain that you're on, it'll say, okay, this size of the stack on this particular type of terrain generates X amount of hits. Okay, you're going to be taking those hits. Then your character card will say, okay, if this is a melee attack, roll X amount of dice. The dice have blank sides, which obviously do nothing. They have a shield side, which blocks damage. They have a full hit, which will do 1 damage back. They have a half hit. So if you get 2 half hits, that makes 1 full hit. And they have a crit where it does a damage and you get to reroll that die. So that's exploding dice. Every time you have a crit, you get to reroll. So combat is quick, fluid. You don't have to roll for them. You know exactly how much damage that you have to apply. Once a token bag is empty, then, Tony, we have another bag that we have to go and pull from, and that's these little cubes that we've been seeding the entire time as we play this game. Because every time there's a combat, we have to take a little yellow cube, if it's available, and throw it into a draw bag. And at the end of a turn, we have to draw a cube, which will possibly move up the biohazard level. Mm-hmm. Pull out a green cube, nothing happens. Yellow cube moves 1 space. Red cube, it moves 2 spaces. And if it ever gets to the end of its track, the game also automatically ends there too. So we want to control that level, and there are certain locations on the board where you can actually decrease the biohazard level.
But what's keeping me from just battling all the time, Marty? Well, if you ever run out of those cubes and you can't put a cube in a bag, guess what? Your biohazard level's going up. So they have your check and balance there as well for the players to kind of mitigate. Oh, we'll just go out and kill all the hordes, and then it's no problem marshaling these people into boats and across bridges. Not everything's hunky-dory. Marty mentioned that, hey, you got to fix the power, so there's repairs you got to do. And probably one of the things that some people may be turned off to in this game, and during the first phase of the evening, people got to eat.
You got to eat.
You've been killing zombies or horrors. You're famished. So you got to manage your food. And if you don't have enough food, people take wound. Everybody, it's the standard fare with one of these games where you're having to feed people.
And you get supplies through either possibly doing the searches, and there's also some locations which have a forage icon, and when you take a forage action, you get to collect a supply. One thing I do appreciate, I mentioned melee combat, there's also range combat, but if you do a range combat, you do have to spend a supply. A supply counts as food, it counts as everything, food, ammo, etc. So I do like that there's only one type of resource that you have to manage, and that's just that supply.
I like that too. And I like how they use the food for range. That was just so cool. I was like, okay, yeah. I don't have to worry about managing that or going to get that.
But I also like, too, that there were some NPCs on the board. You start with one, and through your search deck, you might find more. And on your turn, you can actually activate those NPCs to take the same sort of actions that you would take. But if they have a ranged attack, you don't have to spend supply. So if you creatively use the NPCs, sometimes you can save on supplies. You also have these helicopter tokens that you move around to different areas for help evacuation. You got these ship tokens that you may have to reposition. And what's interesting, Tony, is Those repositioning of ships and helicopters can only be done in a follow-up action. So sometimes you're forced to push your luck and take a follow-up action because you may need to get a boat over to a dock where you have a bunch of survivors and you got to get a boat there for them to be able to evacuate.
Is there anything else we need to talk about how the game's played? I think we're pretty well got it covered there.
I think that's it. I think what's cool is just the fact this is 100% a co-op game. We're talking, we're trying to decide what to do. Maybe one person's really good at fighting and they're going up and trying to keep the horse from moving. Maybe somebody's good at crowd control or moving the tokens along and helping to evacuate. Some are really good at repairing. If the helicopter gets broken, you need to go and repair. Now, the other thing is there are some checks every so often you have to make on like repairs and stuff. The fate deck also has a number at the bottom of it. And like if you do a repair, you flip over, and if you have a 6, hey, great, you did a really good job on the repair. If it's a 1, you messed up and actually it got damaged more. So the fate deck is used for a lot of things, for checks, spawning, moving and activating the horrors, and also the check to see if in a follow-up action, if you're going to have to play an event card a lot. So you'll be interacting with the fate deck a ton during this game.
So some of the top things about this game that I enjoyed. One, not having to control a whole bunch of resources. I like that. I like how one resource was being used. Number 2, I like the fact that the factions were symmetric on your board, but asymmetric between the other groups, and they worked well together. The tension of the game, I felt, continued to grow throughout it, so that was good. Now, my one con is I did feel like the game was a little long and that it drug at some points, especially when we were making some decisions that we had to do. And therefore, if you're wanting a quick hit survival type game or where you're saving the world, this may not be it for you. But overall, if you want to spend 2 to 2.5 hours doing a survival game,
or 3 hours, you think we could get it less? Now we played with 3 people, and we played with Ryan from One Board Family, who was very interested in trying this game. He says he really likes things like Zombicide and Dead of Winter. For him, he enjoyed everything about the game, but he did feel like it stayed on the table too long for him. He said, this is probably not one I'll buy because I want something that finishes up in 90 minutes. And this is probably a minimum of 2-hour game.
Oh, yeah. Easily 2 hours as long as you don't have to do a teach. And I think the challenge in the replayability comes in with that Doom deck, the event deck, and bringing out the various spawning. You could spawn multiple big bads out onto the board if the deck just happens to be shuffled that way. So I think you'll get a lot of replayability.
I do like the flow of the game. I like the player actions. I like the turn order bag. You don't know who's going to go win. I do appreciate that. I actually don't mind the feeding. I think thematically, I think that's really kind of interesting. I like the different number of actions per every round. Again, you're only going to be playing over 9 rounds. So in the middle of the game, you're actually getting the most actions possible, but towards the end, they start going away. I like the theme of trying to save people. You are having to manage 3 different things. Biohazard level. There's certain spots on the board where there's what's called overrun, where if some monsters get there and they overrun certain areas, that could cause a trigger at the end of the game. Everybody dies. Or at the end of the game, after 9 rounds, you have not scored 26 points worth of civilians, then you also lose the game tier. So there's only one way that you can win, and you have to play the entire game. I will get through it. I agree that it does run long. This is not something you're just going to put down on the table and play real quick. People may want to compare this to maybe sort of Dead of Winter with that survival aspect. Even though there's not a betrayer in this one like in Dead of Winter. I think I do like this better than Zombicide, but it's just that length. I've got some good news to announce to people. If you think this game sounds really cool, and it is a really cool co-op experience, I think it's you haven't played Zombicide in a while, have you?
I played it about a year ago.
I feel this is less luck-based than Zombicide.
Yes, and I also like the fact that I'm not having to worry about upgrading.
Yes.
That, I think, to me, is a big separation. Okay, you want a fast-hitting game, then play Zombicide, but you're going to have to manage upgrades and all the various gear that come with it, which is what you want in a game like this. Here, you don't have to play with that, and I'm going to use the word fiddly because it is. It is to me. The Zombicide is fiddly from that standpoint, but it's fast in luck. I agree with you. This is less luck-based.
Especially when you can start counting. It's like, okay, I know how many cards are in the deck. That may say pull the event card, etc. You kind of know how many cubes are in the bag. for when you pull out cubes, it's going to move the biological hazard track. So I do like that. So today on GMT Games website, they have the expansion for this, Tony. It's called the Plum Island Horror, More of a Bad Thing.
Okay.
This has already had over 500 orders, so it will be coming out. It introduces brand new factions. It has nightmare mode, which makes it even harder. So the nightmare mode is this. You know, in a follow-up action, you take your action, draw an event. Nightmare mode, you draw the event card first. And if it says play an event card, you don't get to do your follow-up action.
So draw a fake card. And okay. So you reverse it. Okay.
Yep. It's introducing semi-co-op mode. So if you don't necessarily want to be fully co-op, you can. There's some more mutations and stuff, but here's the big one. New short scenarios. For those of you who actually have lives and can't spend all day playing silly board games, they introduce short scenarios.
Oh.
That fixes the problem. And I love how this whole page is written up. I mean, the designer says, yeah, this is a 2-3 hour game. So here, if you want to be able to sit down and knock something out in maybe under 2 hours, he doesn't say how long it is. This is going to be it. New short scenarios. I will be back in this expansion because I know I'll get this out on the table more often if it doesn't take that same amount of time.
Okay, well, good. I'm glad you're going to spend your money wisely on there. It was enjoyable, but yes, I would not sit down a lot for a 2.5, 3 hour game, especially having to teach it. You know, now that you and I have played it, not a big deal.
I think this will be a good October game to pull out and play it, especially the short version. I think I can get Vanessa to play. So, and here's the thing is, y'all, as of today, this game is hot. It is number 3 on the BGG hotness list. So again, the Plum Island Horror from, of all places, GMT Games, hot game. A lot of people interested in it. Really unique theme. Designed by Herman Luttman. It's available right now. If this tickles your fancy, you know what it does for us. It may do the same thing for you.
It's not tickling my fancy. Not much tickles my fancy. Just saying.
That's true. It's not too late to get on that late pledge for the Gametoppers 4.0 Kickstarter that was last year. You need to upgrade your gaming experience, y'all. One thing you can do that with is that new young Sherlock coffee/children's table. Tony, I keep eyeing that thing. I think that thing would just look really good right in the middle of my living room. And now that Vanessa has a puzzle that she wants to put together, that's probably the perfect place to put it, because then she can just kind of keep it out and put it together there. Maybe get one of those nice new thematic mats and put it out there on the board. It probably has to be solid color though, because if it's one of those nice, fine, nicely,
you'll never find
mats, I'll never find the pieces. So kind of got to go with solid color, which is fine. It's probably going to be best for puzzles. But so he has new mats, new accessories. You've got this young Sherlock coffee table again that's available.
So I want to build on that a little bit from the puzzles. Now we talk about it for games and being able to do that. The rail system of this will keep the pieces on the table. Don't just expand your mind, people. Think beyond just the board games. These can be used for other items. That I cannot tell you how many times Donna's like, I cannot find this piece. And I end up crawling around on the floor, rubbing my hand on the carpet, waiting for the piece to pop up. Now, if she would just let me put the game topper on top of the table. Now, I do put the game topper mats because they're amazing for picking up the pieces, and they're not getting stuck on those felt puzzle mats that you can buy. She would keep them all contained right there, and she can put in a holder for her drink, so that when she knocks it over, it's not spilling all over her nice new puzzle. It's great for card nights, to be able to play cards on. It's not just for board gaming. So if you're looking for the capability of having a new game table or something that will enhance that experience, be sure to go over to the late pledge over at Gametoppers LLC, or go over to Kickstarter and just type in Gametoppers 4.0, and it will take you straight to that page.
Five-minute initiative begins in 3, 2, 1.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. If anybody offers us a game that's a trick-taking game, we'll try it. And that's what we've done with this latest game from All Play Games called Lunar from designer Masato Yusugi. This is one of the most unique trick-taking games I've played in quite a while. You play 2 to 4 players, but we've only played 4, and I think that's just going to be honestly the best way to play. And you play as teams like you would with hearts or spades. But those play with teams?
Hearts is not, spades is, yes.
Just like with spades. All right, so just like we do with spades. Here's the thing is that there's 2 separate decks, y'all. There's 24 cards that are numbered 1 through 8. There's 3 sets of those. There's also 24 cards that are 4 different colors, 4 suits, 6 of each one of those. So you have numbers 1 through 8, and you have 4 different suits. Each of you are dealt 6 of cards of each of the deck, and then the first player is going to play one of their cards. They're going to play the rank or they're going to play the suit. The partner must play the opposite of what you've played. So between 2 teams, you're going to have a rank and a suit between one team and a rank and suit between another. You're going to determine which suit wins the trick, and they're going to gather it. Something that simple. It sounds like, oh, that's a really cool game in itself, but Tony, there's more to this game than just even that.
So before the game gets started, you will be passing 2 suits, 2 ranks to your partner. Then the person who has the lead will then flip over a token that indicates they don't want that to be trump. The next person will then flip over and say, I don't want that to be trump. And then the third person will then flip over and say, I don't want that to be trump. And what's left is now trump of the game. Person with the lead begins, as Marty says, he'll play either a suit or a rank. But this was the part I enjoyed most because I enjoy the game, oh hell. And that is, depending on the number of tricks you take, will score you some points. And there are danger zones that you don't want to be in. And you will score 0 points if you get in that danger zone. So it's a way to say, we really need to slough off some tricks to push them into the danger zone. Oh, wait, but if we get them too close, then they're going to get 10 points. I like that there's no bidding, but there is still that complexity of trick taking, of knowing when to give tricks and when to take tricks.
Yeah, so for example, if you take 1, 2, or 3 tricks, you're going to get 10 points. If you take 4 or 5 tricks, you get 0. That was the coolest thing of all, because it's like, let's say we're partners. Can we slough off enough to only take 1, 2, or 3 tricks? And where the other team's going, crap, no. I'm going to try to set them, make them take a trick so they get that 4th trick worth 0 points. And then they have to actually get 2 more to get even any points at all. You have this really cool dynamic of not only determining what the trump's going to be each turn, each of you must play different things, and now you're trying to take a certain number of tricks to maximize your points. Throw in also, some of the cards actually have stars on them, and if you take a trick with the star, it's worth an extra point at the end. You're going to keep playing over and over until one team has 30 points, and that will actually be the winner. Now, one thing I do say, the trick-taking rules are exactly what you expect them to be. You must follow lead suit. If you can't follow, you can play anything else. If you happen to have play a trump and there's no other trump at the end, then you're going to get that suit. If you have matching suits, then whoever has the highest rank would win.
Now, the only downside of this game is that the flipping of the trump, it pretty well tells people what you've got or don't have in your hand, and therefore you're like, oh, okay. So they're not going to have a lot of these, so it kind of helps you with the lead on the suits. So that's some of the basic card play that you'll have to deal with. But overall, fun game. I enjoyed it. I think it would be tough for me to get this to the table with my other friends who enjoy cards, because I think it would be a little complex in the sense of, okay, how do I know what to play and when to play it? They're just so used to normal card play. So I like that. So for people who really enjoy like board games and this kind of stuff, this is a good one to get on the table. It's very quick, very fast playing.
Yeah. And also at the end of each round, you're going to take your player token and move it to the left. So the lead is going to constantly change throughout the game. So whichever token's in front of you determine the leads. And we found out sometimes you don't want to go first. You'd rather your partner play a card before you do. I love this game. It's this small box type game that comes with all play. So it's very easy to throw into a bag. I'm taking it to Tantrum Con this weekend because I want to teach others. That is Lunar, one of the best unique trick-taking games I've played in quite a while. And if you like this style of game, plays about 20 minutes, I think you should check it out.
5-minute initiative is complete.
bzz, bzz. No, that's not your text thing going off on your phone or anything like that. That's the sound of bees buzzing in the new game from Stonemaier Games called Apiary by Connie Vogelman.
Do bees, do bears, bear?
I know they fart in the woods.
I've heard that.
I know. They also do other things in the wood because when I was in Alaska, I almost stepped in some.
Okay.
All right. We got that out of the way. So we are looking at a game that is a worker placement game.
A worker bee placement game. I see what they did there.
Yeah, and we're busy as bees, and I promise you we will stop.
Yeah, because I know everybody else in the world's done it too, so we'll quit.
It says so. They're hyper intelligent, but bees make the world go round. You know, they're the big pollinators.
Oh, I agree.
Mm-hmm. So
and they like to colonize.
So it's a worker placement game. Guess what you're going to be doing? You're going to be placing some workers, and these are the bees. And when you place these bees out there, there are various areas that they can go. The first one is you can explore, go out and discover some planets where you will be able to collect various resources that you need to be able to go out and later buy stuff in the advance area where you will turn those in and get some tiles to add to your tile board. Everybody has their own tile board. By the way, there's special powers. Every bee colony is different.
I like that.
Then there is, of course, the grow action, which gives you the ability to expand your hive out. Then you've got the research, which are these special seed cards that are multi-purpose use cards. They may have some in-game scoring, but they also have ways for you to take additional actions, but you got to pick one. Can't do them both. And then there is the convert where you can move, fiber, and then let's go get us some water. Or let's go convert some fiber and some pollen, or water and some pollen and go get some honey. And then, of course, there is the big thing. You got the carve action. And that's big tiles for big in-game scoring. That's where you are placing your workers. But where this game, it might be slightly different, and I can't think of any, I'm sure there are, but the bees have powers to them. And when these bees go out on the board, you take that power and it allows you to do a simple action. Maybe in the explore action, you can move the queen bee one space if you put out a one power bee. Then someone comes along and they place their bee in that same area. You add the power of the bees, and now the queen can move. He placed out a 1, you placed out a 1, you can now move them 2. And throughout all those sections, that's what you're using, the power of these bees to do additional, stronger actions in those areas. That was the big thinky part for me, is how to manipulate these powers and use them to the best ability.
Well, that's what made the game unique for me. So every bee has levels 1 through 4. Start out with level 1. And basically the tokens are really nice. Each side has a different number on it, so you can easily track what level the bees are. The thing is, though, is when the bees come off the board, let's say somebody goes to an area and they push you off the board. When it comes back, you have the option to go ahead and get it ready for the next turn and level up from 1 to 2, for example. Now I have a level 2 worker I can put out there. He levels up, and when it gets to 4, he would level back to 1 and go off to the side of the table. He's been used, he's done, and you have to take a special action, which is the grow action, in order to get a worker bee from your supply back onto the board. Okay. So they're constantly being leveled up. And like Tony said, the higher the levels, that allows you to buy more additional tiles. Maybe when you go do the carve action, which is the in-game scoring, you have to have a level 4 when you do that. When you go to draw cards, the higher level as the number of cards you can draw. It's like if it's level 4, draw 4 cards, keep 1. When I go exploring to get resources, that's the amount of places I can move that queen bee to get to the spot I need to get resources. So the higher level is always better for you to use. Or what's really useful is the conversion. We want to do converting of resources. The level of your bee determines the number of conversions that you can make. So the interesting thing is, when do you want to use the bees, knowing that eventually they'll go back to a level 1, then you have to take an action in order to get it back onto your board. But Tony, one thing I did like was you're building out your hive, right? There's one section of the board where you can go and add tiles to your hive that are special abilities, like there's farming tiles or tiles that give you abilities or skills that just last throughout the entire game. One action you can do on your turn is do a retrieve. Take all the bees off the board that are yours, level them up, get them ready to go out onto the board again into your little worker area on your mat. For every one you pulled off, you can activate one of the farms. And the farms are typically going to be used for also getting resources. So not only can you use the board to get resources, this retrieving of your workers generates resources by using your farm tiles, and it will level up your bees to something more useful that you could use in the upcoming turns.
Now, the retrieve action can really mess people up too. I'm counting on Marty's 2B being in a certain location so I can place my 3B, because like I said before, you can add those up, and then you get to take, a tile in the 5 column under the advance. Well, Marty just retrieved. Well, that just messed up my whole game. Well, not my whole game. He messed up my turn, but he's messed up my game previous. I'll go ahead and just say that. He just already screwed me up. So that action of retrieve is very, in my mind, strategic, because maybe you can see what someone's working towards. And you're like, I really don't want them to have this action. But then again, if you retrieve too early, you can't take as many farm actions as you want, because only the bees that go back active can take farm actions. And you might do something that may cause them to go and turn into 4, which then immediately makes them hibernate. When you hibernate a bee, 4, and it goes off the board, you then place a hibernate token in the hibernation area, which gives you some special resources or allows you to take an additional card. It's like the in-game.
It's the in-game trigger.
Yes.
Trigger. Once every spot has a hibernation token on it, that will trigger the end of the game.
And in that area, there's some area majority, whoever has the most hibernate tokens will gain victory points. So that's an in-game scoring that you need to be keeping track of as well. Or if someone puts out all their hibernate tokens, that's an in-game scoring method to get the game. So whoever has the most victory points at the end of the game wins. The uniqueness is the bees are advancing. They're getting stronger. The workers are working out. They're lifting some additional pollen. They're bringing it back. They're making the queen bee happy. She gives them special duties to go out and do it again until they get too worn out and they have to hibernate, and you have to figure out how to bring them on. You can mess yourself up sometimes with this retrieve action. You cannot be thinking very well, what about I forgot to go out and get my other bees and bring them back to the hive? If there's ever a situation where all your bees are resting or have gone through hibernation, you may pull one back right then, and then bring it back out onto the board, and then that helps you generate them over. So you're never really stuck. The game ends. Placing the tiles are very important, because some of them, if they're set next to one another, you'll get additional points. So a lot of ways to score additional points that you just have to keep track of.
Yeah, there's a little bit of point salad in this with how you want to generate your points. And it's also very much kind of a solitary game. You can take advantage of other bees on the board. And like Tony said, he may get screwed up if somebody retrieves their bee before he was getting ready to use a spot. But there's not a lot of negative player interaction. I guess maybe if you take a tile from somebody they wanted, but it's not intentional. You don't know that somebody actually wanted that tile. So it really is going to be focusing on the hive that's in front of you, building out your hive, getting the right tiles positioned, determining when do I want to retrieve my bees, and managing the level of your bees. When it comes to a straight worker placement game, it's pretty standard fare. Nothing really unique. None of these places on the board doesn't really stand out from any other worker placement game. It's the leveling up of the workers and then resetting, and you have to get them back on the board, that makes the game unique to me.
Mm-hmm. Now, some people in our group say, it may have stayed on the table too long, but that's because some of us were sitting there taking our actions a little long. How long do you want a worker placement game to last?
For this style of game, it stayed on the table too long for me. I was enjoying what I was doing. I wasn't crazy about the pacing of this game. It never changed to me. It was kind of like the same pace. It didn't gain momentum. I love games that gain momentum as it goes, to where, holy crap, the end of the game is coming a lot faster than what I was expecting. I got to hurry up and scramble and do stuff. I felt myself, it's like, oh my gosh, so we still got 6 hibernation spots to fill. That sort of feeling, which is not a good feeling for me. Okay.
But for others, that may be like, okay, I don't like that. I wish I had additional turns. You don't want that big, heavy momentum shift as you're seeing they've got that end game right in front of them, and you're not going to be able to get your actions because you have not been as efficient as they were with their leveling and their control. Yeah, it depends on what you like and what you enjoy in your worker placement games. I do like ones where I see the end round coming. Sometimes I feel like, okay, if I've screwed up in the very beginning, I will never achieve be competitive.
Be competitive.
Oh, bad. I'm sorry. I said I wouldn't do it.
It was an
anymore.
accident. Yeah. Sure.
I will say we did run into something with one of our gameplays where an individual had a special bee that gave them special powers, and just so happens in our convert action, we had a special convert to get honey, which then they were able to get a tile, and he decimated us in scoring. It was just like a perfect storm, and it can happen. There is that potential. So
there was like the power of his hive. He got some tiles that synergized perfectly together to where one fed off the other and created just an engine. It's like, I don't know how you stop this sort of deal.
Right. He had what is it? The combo.
He had a super combo.
Yes, he did. So you can have that happen in this game. So combos they do happen. Like I was sitting there, I know one time I was taking way too long, but I was sitting there playing all these seed cards. I had built up this deck of seed cards trying to get multiple actions to occur. And I was like, okay, so this was taking a little too long, and I know I slowed it down for you guys.
For me, I enjoyed the mechanics of the leveling up. I wasn't crazy about the pacing. The theme is forgettable. Space Bees, I almost wish it was something more realistic, because honestly, that just kind of washes away, and I'm just really kind of placing tokens at the time. So that's kind of where I stand. 100%. Would I play again? Do I need to own it? No, because I think there's other worker placement games I would rather keep my shelves, but I for sure would play it again.
Okay, so for me, Donna loves her tile placing games. I have not put it on the table with her. I'm interested in see how this will play with two players, see how the pacing picks up. I think for us, this might be one of those that I could, I want to go for a little bit longer than her usual tile placing games, and challenge her to figure out these combos. I do think it's a good game for someone who's not familiar with worker placement. I think the bees will get them enhanced. I just hope it's not too complex on understanding the retrieve action and the hibernate and making sure that they have a plan. So I really appreciate the fact that they have that ability that if you've messed up, you're able to still go on your turn by bringing a bee back from hibernation. And then you can help them walk through the pace of it. So that is Apiary from Stonemaier Games.
5-minute initiative begins in 3, 2, 1.
Restoration Games has released another Unmatched set. This is called Unmatched Sun's Horizon, which spotlights two heroes from Japan. One is Oda Nobunaga. This game's all about what new abilities and new things that a character can do. This person has two henchmen or sidekicks, and his thing is about flanking. He wants to have where there's two of his pieces adjacent to the opponent. And if so, there are cards that can kick in special abilities if you're flanking. So that's his whole thing. The other character is Tomo Gozen, and I did really like her character. I thought she was really cool. Her whole thing was if somebody leaves an area that is the same color the area she's in, they automatically take 1 damage. So there's cards in her deck that can possibly push or manipulate where people are on the board and just automatically generate damage by them just going out a different zone than her. So again, two very unique characters in this Unmatched set based on these Japanese heroes.
I haven't played a lot of the Unmatched games, so when you put it on the table, I'm like, okay, a quick refresher. That's one of the beauties about Unmatched. Haven't played it a lot, but you went over it very quickly with me. Card iconography stays the same. Understanding the board, understanding the zones of the attack, very nice, and I can appreciate that. And to your point, it's what do these characters bring to this game? I liked some of the aspects of the Tomo Gozen character. I liked some of her card play and how that she would hit and be able to move quickly. I liked her range capabilities that she had. And also on this board, and when you and I first were playing, it was like, wait a minute, how in the world is she hitting me from all the way across the board? It was just 2 layers and how they represented 2 layers of a ship, I believe, or maybe it was a factory. I don't remember.
Yeah, it's a really cool map. I like the map of this one where it feels like a ship and there's multiple levels of the ship and they represent that well.
Yeah. I wasn't keen on this flanking thing when I was playing.
Because I pinned you in.
I know. But I was like, okay, well, eventually you're going to have to run away. You're going to run away and, tuck your tail because I got a lot of good cards that did a lot of damage that also allowed me to pull back in from my discard pile. Once again, that's part of a match. How is their deck built? And what is the balance of that versus the other person? And then how would it affect the other characters that I have in the other Unmatched series that are out there? And then I was also thinking, from how would this fit into Tales to Amaze? Be kind of cool, especially, is Oda in Tales to Amaze?
These are two brand new characters.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how his henchmen apply to Tales to Amaze and get that on the board.
Mm-hmm.
All in all, Unmatched Sun Origins, if you're into it, this is, I think, would probably be one that you definitely want to have just because of the difference of those characters bring to the game.
I see. I like the characters themselves. And yeah, the game pretty much plays the same. We've explained the characters, but I kind of got into these characters. So Tomo Gozen is an actual person in Japanese history. I read a couple papers on her that's really interesting. So she was part of the samurai. And back then, the samurai would basically go to battle, and it was expected that the wife of the samurai would stay home and learn how to fight. She learned how to fight to be able to protect and defend her house. This character here was one that actually went onto the battlefield and actually fought with the other samurai. And so I was reading up on her, and it's interesting. I was read this thing. It's like there's a lot of stories about her, but most of them are legendary and not necessarily historical. But they do know that there's some things where she was defeated in a fight, and she took down two of the leaders. And so she just really has this cool story. But the more I read into this, what's really cool is come to find out that there were more women in the Japanese army and Japanese military than were originally thought. It wasn't that rare necessarily for someone like her to be a samurai and fight. So I thought that was really interesting too, as they dug into the history. I mean, again, I read, this was from the University of Hawaii. I read this long old paper on her because I just thought it was about interesting of women warriors in early Japan. So what I liked about this, kind of like GMT games, right? It's like, oh, here's something I didn't know about. You learn about the history of this new character. So I appreciate for opening my eyes to this really cool character.
Hey, there you go. Games that teach. That's what we got going on here.
That's right. So anyway, if you're looking for the latest Unmatched, and it's a full set board, 2 brand new characters that can be used with any set, check out Unmatched Sun's Origin. Once again, the art is absolutely immaculate. The art on the cards, the art on the box is so good. If you're an Unmatched fan, yeah, you're going to want this one in your collection.
5-minute initiative is complete.
Hey, Marty.
Yeah.
Did you get your invite to the 25th anniversary show at PortalCon this year? Mine got lost in the mail.
You know, you think for all the years we invite Ignacy to our Squirrely Awards event, you think we would finally just 1 year invite us to his big event over in Poland.
I think he'd probably come back and say, it's a standing invite if you just get your sorry butts over here. But at PortalCon, they talked about the new game Printing Press, which is a follow-up to Gutenberg. If you're interested in that, go over to shopportalgames.com, get in that pre-order. Then, of course, there's the Merchants Guild pre-order that's currently hot, according to the website. It's got a little red banner that says hot. So you can get that. That's only $10. And, of course, you can always pick up Imperial Miners, one of his big hits from 2023. And, by the way, if you're like, Gutenberg, maybe I'll pick up Gutenberg. It's currently on sale over there at Shop Portal Games. And, oh, man, just so many of their classic games. And if you watch 25 Years of Portal and watch some of the announcements that were coming out, maybe the nostalgia for Robinson. Go ahead. Maybe you traded it away like I did as a fool a long time ago. Get it back. You need those survival games. You need a hard co-op game. I mean, you heard us talk about these Plum Island Horrors coming. That's nothing compared to trying to find enough wood on an island to burn to get a signal fire up and created like Robinson. You'll be dying all the time of dysentery and other deadly diseases of animal attacks. Nothing makes you feel good like suddenly, we're wiped, we're done. So go head over to shopportalgames.com.
5-minute initiative begins in 3, 2, 1.
All right, one of the hot games that's out right now is a game called Forest Shuffle, designed by Kosh, publisher's Lookout Game. And yep, it's a nature game. It's a set collection game. This is what this game is. You are trying to build the best forest out there and bring in some birds, have some mushrooms. You got some animals out there, and based on the various combinations that are happening, you're going to score some points at the end of the game. So if you're able to do a good set collection and get various combos going, then you are going to score well in this Forest Shuffle game. Personally, this game was kind of mild for me. It didn't initially grab me. I've played it with my family. I've played it with the gentlemen at our game night, and I can understand the appeal. I really can. However, for me, this game became a set collection, and how can I manipulate those sets so I get the most points at the end?
Yeah, and on your turn, you're going to be able to play cards, and you have to discard cards equal to the cost of that card, and I'll put it into play. But you're going to be putting trees on the table, and then the cards that you put under those trees have two sides, a top, bottom, left, or right. So when you put that under a tree, you'll either expose the left or right side of the card, the top or the bottom. And that's going to be the animals or plants or etc. that you're trying to collect. And it'll say, hey, if you pair this animal with this animal, you get some bonus points. For every however X of this animal you have, you get points. So you're looking out at a market on the board. And on your turn, you can take cards from the market. You draw from the deck, trying to get a full hand of cards in order to try to create the best set collection that you can. I, too, was just somewhat okay on it. We heard a lot about it from Dice Diversions. They had been selling out everywhere. It just so happens one of the vendors there had it. So I went and picked up a copy, and I couldn't wait to play it. Now, if you don't have a lot of set collection card games, this might be one to put into your collection. And to ask you, for playing with other people, did they have any trouble grasping or understanding the cards and how they work together, as far as reading the cards and go, oh, I know if I pair this together, it's going to give me points?
No, I mean, after I told them some of the iconography, they quickly grasped it. They understood. Probably the hardest thing was understanding that when you discard to pay for the card, that if it has that bonus action, you need to make sure that your discards of that color all match. That was messing them up. And they had to watch their hand size because, there's a 10 card hand limit. Also, one of the things is when the board gets full, then if it gets 10 or more, it immediately gets wiped. So, some cards that you may want disappear. So they weren't happy when some of that occurred, but hey, that's part of the strategy of the game. But I did see where I saw certain trends form up, like, okay, this person's only doing this, therefore that's easy to mitigate. Oh, wait, they're collecting all of these trees. That's easy to mitigate. There was some arguments.
What do you mean by mitigate?
What I mean is, they are only collecting species for the oak because you need all these species. Well, make sure they don't get a chance to grab those trees.
So you can hate draft.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah.
I call it mitigating. You can call it hate drafting, but yeah, I mitigate their scoring. I had the chestnuts, and people were discarding chestnuts left and right. I just ran that up and got a lot of points. And then, of course, there was a big argument over species of butterfly, and we had to go to the rule book where it talked about what are the different types. They were different names for the butterflies, but they were the same species. They said, well, they got different names. I said, no, they got to be different images. And there was some various things. So all in all, they liked it, but they didn't grab them like I thought it would because it was such a low-key set collection game. They were like, yeah, it's all right.
I will say, I think we're probably one of the few people that are going to say this. This game is super hot. I see it talked about online all the time. People are playing it. I think it's fine. Maybe it was because I saw it so overhyped. I thought it was going to be something really cool and unique. It's not really unique. It's just a clever way of doing set collection. I do like multi-purpose cards, y'all. I do like multi-use cards. So that part I really, really like. I like having each card is basically two parts. But for me, there might be some other set collection card games I might be more interested in this. I see the appeal, but it may not necessarily be for me.
So that is Forest Shuffle from Lookout Games.
5-minute initiative is complete.
Over the weekend, Vanessa and I was wanting to watch a movie. We were in hey, let's watch a comedy, something funny. So I went and looked up what were the top comedies of 2023. And one of them was The Holdovers, which I'd heard a lot of good things about. It was like number 2 on the comedies. So Tony, Vanessa, and I sat and watched this movie with Paul Giamatti, and I like Paul Giamatti. Okay, I don't know what's happening with the definition of comedies. That was not a comedy. It was, at the most, maybe some lighthearted moments here and there, but it was way much more of a drama. What has happened to all the good comedies? You remember, 15, 20 years ago when you had your Hangovers and your Superbads and your Anchormans and stuff that was just pure comedy. Are those just not around anymore?
Well, you and I have different taste in comedies.
Okay, forget the taste in comedies. Can you name a pure comedy movie that's not part of some sort of drama or something? It's funny. It's just made to make people laugh.
No, I can't. I can't think of any that have just made me laugh. Rom-coms are the closest thing I can even think of recently, and I can't think of any comedies that have been out that I've enjoyed because a lot of them they've gone raunchy or whatever. I don't need that crap, just make me laugh.
Right. I think the hardest I've laughed recently at a movie was probably Deadpool 2, and that's been years ago, but that's kind of more of a superhero movie. But, again, when I know you didn't like Napoleon Dynamite, and that's even older than that, but, The Bridesmaids, was a big popular movie from many, many years ago. And like I said, The Hangover, I don't know. It just seems that pure comedies aren't around, and I just wish that somebody just said, hey, here's a movie, going to make you laugh, enjoy it.
Keep wishing. I don't think it's happening. I don't think it's happening anytime.
But at least I'm glad I saw The Holdovers because nominations for the Oscars just came out, and hey, it was nominated for a lot of stuff. So I said, hey, I saw an Oscar movie.
So I'm looking through these, and of the comedies, what's some recent comedies that have come out? And I'm seeing a lot of splattered tomatoes.
Oh, you're on Rotten Tomatoes.
Well,
okay.
Yeah, just the list on my search, it's like, 53%. And I'm looking at the green dots. I'm like, okay, there's not hardly anything. Maybe they'll get some good ones coming out. Maybe the movie theaters will start producing stuff. I'm sure there's good comedies on all these streaming services, Max, Netflix, Amazon. I don't know. You're right. Hey, if you're in a Discord channel, be sure to go over there and say, you know what, you gentlemen need to go watch this comedy.
Speaking of the Oscars, Tony and I are also prepping for the Squirrelies. That's going to be happening in early March. I've already been started talking to the presenters, so you definitely want to keep an eye out for that.
So be ready to start voting in the All Y'all Award, where there'll be a write-in ballot of what was your favorite game of 2023, and you can then dictate who presents the favorite game of the RDTN listeners.
That's right. All right. So, Tony, I just finished playing Phantom Detective Ghost Trick. This was a game that came out from Capcom. I played it on the Switch. It came out from Capcom on the DS many, many, many years ago, and it was ported over to the Switch. If you like puzzle games, interesting twist on puzzle games. It plays about 12 hours. I recommend this one. The story kind of fell flat for me at the end, but I enjoyed it because of the puzzle element of the game. It's not puzzly like Professor Layton, not those style of puzzles, but it's more of a physics type style puzzles.
Oh, okay.
So I really, really enjoyed that. So Phantom Detective Ghost Trick, finished it up. I enjoy my time with it. Now I'm trying to decide what to play. I kind of feel like I want to play an RPG. I just can't decide between Sea of Stars and Golden Sun, which just came out on Nintendo Online, which is a classic Game Boy Advance game that I actually started playing when I had my Game Boy Advance, but just never finished it.
You know what? I never did go get Advance Wars. Or did I? I can't remember now. I have to go check in my Switch catalog.
It's probably unopened.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. It's unopened.
That's a good turn-based game. It really is.
Yeah.
However, I did send you links to the now NCSoft supported City of Heroes servers that are up, and I've installed that.
Oh, I have battled. That was an internal battle. Do I want to go do this again?
Why not? Do it. Let's play together for a little bit.
Oh, I
Just
never
for
made
fun.
it to 40. Did you get on the server that doubles your XP?
The characters I had from previously when I played it was not on the double XP server, but I would create one there. I didn't gotta say we gotta grind to 40.
Wait a
just
minute.
kind of like
My
what?
character's there?
No, my characters last year when this was an unsupported server, I created one and just played around with it. But the ones I created characters on was not the 2 times XP servers. So I would do that if you want to, just to monkey around with it and go listen to the music and
Did you
go into the sewers. And,
I was going to say to the sewers. Did you go into the factory? Did you go into the caves?
And the warehouse, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then you're running around hitting the thugs.
Yes.
Okay.
Doing that.
And do you want to fly, jump, or teleport for your travel?
They say the best way was leaping.
I had leaping.
But I thought leaping was boring, but I always thought that was the best way to travel.
Well, I disagree. But see, when you'd leap, you would land in a whole bunch of people and you would die.
Oh, okay. I did teleport for the longest time, but you got to be quick with the button because if you don't teleport quick enough and you're in midair, you start falling.
Yeah. So I would lean more towards the flying if I recreate sun poison.
Or fast speed. Super speed.
Super speed. I can't control that. I'd be running into a factory in a heartbeat, just bam. And then I'd forgotten, somebody in our Discord, TR Knight, was talking about he had a superhero hall and all this other stuff. And then I started thinking about crafting and how you could combine the various things together to get the upgrades. And I was
the inspirations, I think. I totally forgot about that.
I was just like, okay. And then how did the healing work? I'd have to go back and look at all that. So maybe I'll install it when I'm sitting here over on a cold weekend or something. Either way, I'm just going to keep rolling dice
and taking names. Hey y'all, thanks for listening. Remember, you can support the show over at buymeamoonpie.com. Please join our Discord channel, follow all our socials. Heck, just go to rolldicetakenames.com. You're going to see the links for all this stuff. Next episode, we'll be covering some games we played at Tantrum Con, and don't forget, coming in March, you're going to have our big annual Squirrely Awards.
12 years doing this podcast.
Uh-huh.
I'm not asking for much. Just a card that says come.
From Ignacy?
Yeah, just an invite card. I mean, what does it, what would it take?
It doesn't even have to be put in the actual physical snail mail. It could just be an email. Just say, hey, you want to come?
I'd like to see it in snail. I'd like to see the 25th. I would like to see it embossed. I would have liked to have seen the 25.
Mm-hmm.
But it would have been nice, but okay, fine. Maybe next year.
Maybe they'll do a big celebration at Gen Con and maybe he'll bring in some cake or something.
Well, hopefully we'll be around for his 50th.
We won't be around for his 30th.